what's been particularly effective about the far left is that a lot of their activism is they latch onto something that sounds very noble and justified and legitimate, like Black Lives Matter, fighting for racial justice, fighting for social justice, fighting against fascism. All of these type of things are propaganda terms. It's part of how they are able to deceive the wider public. I think what did surprise me is that when the line was crossed into them actually allying themselves with terrorist organizations like Hamas or Hezbollah, I really thought that that would be a turning point in sort of the mainstream discourse.
All right, guys, I'm off the grid for August, but I'm still Dave Rubin. This is the Rubin Report, and joining me today, pre-taped before I left, is a journalist, I don't have to put air quotes around, a senior editor of the Post-Millennial and author of the New York Times best-selling Unmasked Inside Antifa's Radical Plan to Destroy Democracy, is my old friend and gotta be 12th time on the Rubin Report, Andy Ngo. Andy, how are you?
I'm okay. Thanks for having me on, Dave.
12th? That seems roughly right to me. Does that seem right to you?
I don't know how many times it's been. It's been a lot, but we've been in contact since going back to like 2017. It goes back far. I still remember those early days.
Yeah, it might be before 2017. I think it was closer to 2015, actually. You were but a young student at Portland State University trying to get into journalism, and you attended an event that I did with Peter Boghossian and with Christina Hoff Sommers, and it was sort of the beginning of Antifa and all of these campus protests and everything else. And you made something of yourself. Very proud of you.
Thank you, Dave.
Anyway, as my audience knows, I am off the grid for August, so we are pre-taping this. So anything we're going to talk about for the next 50 minutes or so, obviously some of it is subject to change. But as I leave right now at the end of July, it seems to me that what you've been writing about for a long time, warning about what was sort of happening on the radical left and between Antifa and these sort of fringe groups online that materialize in a lot of these blue cities, it really has burst forth into, I would say, open Marxism in America. Do you feel that that is a fair estimation?
Well, the Marxism ideology aspect has already been open for many, many years, particularly in academia. That type of activism is not particularly surprising. I think what you are observing and what others are observing, like many normies, is that the militancy has taken a particular turn. I think the events of the 7th of October has been quite an eye-opening experience, particularly for a lot of liberal Jewish Americans, who have been lifetime Democrat voters and are seeing people who they think are on their side either sympathetic to the events of the 7th of October and or actually sympathetic to Hamas, and more recently explicitly calling for Hamas terrorist attacks, as has happened at some of these violent protests that have happened in the American Capitol, where federal monuments are vandalized, and the messages that are left there are not ambiguous at all. There are things like saying Hamas is coming, in adopting the Hamas red triangle symbol, which was used in some of the maps for the 7th of October, marking particular communities, kibbutzes, that were set upon and people were mass slaughtered. So I think this is probably what you're observing. I think describing as Marxism is one part. Another aspect to it is revolutionary communism, left anarchism as well. This coalition of these malcontents in America who benefit from the stability that is provided in America and the First Amendment and all these various protections, in going out and calling for that entire system to be overturned and for their political opponents to be killed and maimed. So this is all part of and Antifa, by the way, is part of these concentric circles. So you have all these different ideologies and militants that are coming together with one shared agenda, which is to see the toppling of the United States. And they have a lot of useful idiots in the Democrat Party and in the media, sympathizers and fellow travelers as well, I would argue, who act as their propagandists.
So you've been writing about this for years, and not only writing about it, I mean, you've been living through it in that you've been a target of these people. They've come after you physically. They've, threatened you online, all the litany of things that one can go through. You've been through, and probably some things that we don't know about as well. Are you surprised at where we're at right now? Or do you think this was just going to be here? We were eventually going to get to a place where in certain cities, you're allowed to basically take over whenever you want. You're allowed to destroy monuments. You're allowed to burn things down when you want. You can burn the flag on the July 4th. On July 4th, you can go to the Liberty Bell and you can deface that. I mean, does any of this surprise you at all? Or is this just obvious?
As you said, I've been covering far left extremism for years now, going back really to 2016. When my city, Portland, Oregon, was set on fire in the November election because people couldn't accept the election results at that time when Trump had won. I'm surprised and I'm not surprised to see the developments. I mean, the main thesis of my reporting for all these years of my book as well, Unmasked, is that political violence on the left is being mainstream and made into something that we should just sort of all accept as a normal act of peaceful protest, and all these euphemisms that are used to cover it. What is surprising, though, is that I thought that so what's been particularly effective about the far left is that a lot of their activism is they latch onto something that sounds very noble and justified and legitimate, like Black Lives Matter, fighting for racial justice, fighting for social justice, fighting against fascism. All these type of things are propaganda terms. It's part of how they are able to deceive the wider public. I think what did surprise me is that when the line was crossed into them actually allying themselves with terrorist organizations like Hamas or Hezbollah, I really thought that would be a turning point in sort of the mainstream discourse. And perhaps maybe because
what you mean though is that they would have continued to have done it, the people on the ground, but you think the mainstream would have pushed back more than they have as it pertains to
yes,
them?
I think it's one thing to be willingly ignorant, and accept sort of the on the face claims that these are people protesting for racial justice or Black lives. You can't really make that. You can't put together. It's harder to make it work when these groups are people who are, for example, holding up flags of Hamas or Hezbollah. It's like that's not a euphemism. That's actually what they are in support of. But regardless of that, we still see, I saw some of these interviews from Democrats when they were being asked, for example, the day after Netanyahu spoke, the day after some of the American flags were stolen and set on fire outside Union Station in DC, and then all these federal monuments were defaced with pro-Hamas statements. Some Democrat lawmakers on the Hill were asked, what are your thoughts on this? And they kind of squirmed. If you watch some of them, they said things about free speech, which is a red herring, because we're talking about, this is not about speech. This is about conduct, and particularly criminal conduct, right? It's not a free speech issue to steal somebody else's property and set it on fire. It's not a free speech issue to vandalize property. But I don't know what more it needs to take for Democrats to feel more comfortable in condemning. We have seen some statements, particularly from Biden, also from Kamala, who did come out and were critical of what happened. I guess that's one small step, perhaps too little, too late, though.
If you're looking for more uncensored opinions from today's thought leaders, check out our media playlist. And if you want to watch full interviews on a variety of topics, watch our full episode playlist, all right over here. And to get notified of all future videos, be sure to subscribe and click the notification bell.